Good evening and welcome to Mental Wealth Wednesday. This is June, and June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Corey Empowers is honored to have this strong, powerful panel of men on today to share with you their journeys, their understanding, and the need to prioritize mental health and wellness. Yes, even in corporate America, even with a successful business, even as an entrepreneur, you need to understand and apply in your lives the tips, the tools to help you to have a strong foundation for a strong mental health and to have overall wellness in your life. So, I am going to start off with this powerful introduction of each gentleman so that they can tell you who they are and what they do. And then we'll go into our questions. And if you have any questions, always feel free to put them in the comments and we will provide responses. Also, always remember that you are able to go to CoreyEmpowers.com for vital information and resources to help you in your journey or to help others in your community. So, with that, we have Billy Taylor. Billy, all
What's going on,
smiles all
Corey?
the time. How are you? Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi. Well, first of all, great to see you, Corey. Billy Ray Taylor. I spent 30 years with Goodyear in operations in North America. And then after 30 years, I branched off to start my own company called Linked Excel, where we actually design basically an architect operating systems, virtual and visual. And so I've been doing that for the last 5 years and author of the book, The Winning Link. And so the big portion of my life was in corporate America. And I want to thank you for coming on to talk about that sensitive subject around mental health. And as African Americans, I know for myself, right, that tough exterior, but it's going to be interesting to talk to my friends and my peers and share some lessons that we went through coming through corporate America. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm gonna let y'all decide who's gonna go next.
Swama.
All right, so good evening. As always, my buddies are putting me on the spot. My name's Aswama
Yes.
Yeboah, originally from Ghana, born and raised. I moved to the US for college and had the pleasure of working for multiple companies over my career. First and foremost, I am a family man. I'm a son to two wonderful parents who still live in Ghana. I have a wife and two kids here in Ohio. After a career in corporate America, both large and small companies, I moved on and started a business where I manage multiple real estate businesses across Northeast Ohio. So that's Aswama.
All right.
Very good.
Great. Great.
Hey, my name is Ellis Jones. It is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Corey, and always thanks to Billy for getting us together. Corey, I do have one rule that I never follow Billy, so I'm never immediately after Billy in anything we do. So that is the rule that I have. But look, I spent 33 years at the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. Billy and I came up together at Goodyear. Mike will give you his story as well. So we spent some time together. But I spent my career, half of my career in accounting and finance, different leadership roles in finance, and then shifted over to operations, manufacturing director. And then I retired from Goodyear in 2023. I was vice president and chief sustainability officer. Since then, I am actually on the board of two companies. So I'm on the board of directors of a steel company here in Akron and a chemical company in Houston, Texas. So as an independent director, I work with leadership teams and govern how the companies are operated. In addition to that, I do some consulting around safety, organizational consulting, and strategic advisor to a software company. So it is again a pleasure to be here. And yes, this is a very important topic. Some of the challenges that we deal with sometimes as men, we like to keep that inside, and we like to, as Billy said, put that tough exterior up. But it is so critical to have a community to be able to talk about the challenges you're dealing with every day, because many times other people are dealing with the same challenges. So this is a very important topic. So looking forward to having the discussion.
Well, good evening. My name is Mike Parnell. It's really, really good to be here with these three distinguished gentlemen and you, Corey, as well. Thank you for the invitation. I'm the senior citizen of the group, I think, so age has its privileges. My current role, ironically enough, strangely enough, is Director of Athletics with the University of Mount Union. I've been there 6 years in that role, but I got there in a very strange and unique way, which kind of is indicative of my career. I spent 36 years in corporate roles, 20 of those with Goodyear, 4 with Alcoa, 5 with Ryder, and almost 8 years with a company called Bemis in Wisconsin, which is a flexible packaging company. I started out as in R&D as a development engineer and progressed because I went and got my MBA at Akron, and I just wanted to do something more than just be an R&D lab person. And so I branched out. Goodyear gave me the opportunity to do that. So I grew into leadership roles, business leadership roles, functional leadership roles, and made the jump away from Goodyear. But I eventually came back. So I spent 5 years out, came back, another 10 years. Really, really good career. Met obviously a lot of great people, 3 of the gentlemen here. But I went on to a different capacity in different industries, and the ability to do that and to grow and lead takes a network to help support you with that, and always someone to call and rely on and check in with, and get advice from. So that's what these 3 gentlemen have meant to me, and making the transition from corporate to direct to athletics, college athletics, was really very strange and very unique, but it has been a very fun run for me. I'm an alum of Mount Union, but stepping into that role in 2020 during COVID was an amazing and chaotic experience, but we survived it. We're still here and being successful. So that's who I am. I'm married 42 years to I'd say my childhood sweetheart. And 3 kids, 3 grandkids, and 1 more on the way. So, family is very important. My faith is very important. And that's what helps, get me through every day, and having people to rely on like these 3 as well. So that's who I am.
Wow, these intros are just so inspiring. I know they will be moving for others, and I love hearing the Ohio connection with all of us. So, yay, Ohio!
Full disclosure, Corey, I'm from Pittsburgh, so sorry I have to.
Yeah, we accept some people.
You're connected to Ohio.
That's right.
Right next door. Right next door.
That's right.
So thank you so very much for your introductions and just being willing to have this conversation. Just being willing to have the conversation helps to reduce so much stigma. Your presence on the screen just helps to reduce so much stigma surrounding the discussions, the conversations, the barriers to the conversations about mental health and wellness. And despite many male leaders being successful in their careers, being leaders in their places, in their communities, many silently struggle. They may have high burnout and just low efforts to seek treatment because of stigma, having disproportionate high statistics in terms of suicide. This is among CEOs and entrepreneurs who have, founders who have started large companies, but unfortunately died by suicide. And so I believe that this conversation can help change the narrative, specifically in the corporate space and this successful leader space, right? And so with that, I just want to ask this first question. It centers around psychological safety. And I know, Billy, you have talked to me about that in some of our conversations, but how can leaders actively create psychological safety? not just to say that they support it, not that it's just a line in their HR policy, but what can they do to create that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and I learned a lot. Billy and I were peers. I worked for Billy for several years, and watched how Billy operate. And one of the ways that I try to get when I talk to young leaders and I coach young leaders, it's about, and everyone's heard me say this. It's about, I work within an operating system, and Billy talks about an operating system. He puts operating systems in, and you don't have to be in a factory floor to create an operating system. In every position I've had, when I started really getting into leadership, I said, man, I need to have an operating system, and an operating says this is how you're going to work, and it creates a certain I think consistency. It creates this. I think when people come into an operating system, it does create a consistency. It creates a method, and it says, here's how we're going to operate. And I think leaders have to be very consistent in how they operate. And my operating system focuses on three pillars. One is systems and processes or structure. There is environment and there's capability. And a lot of leaders say, man, I need the strongest people and the smartest people in my organization. Well, if you don't create this environment where those people can thrive, I don't think those people can be successful. So I've seen organizations with the smartest people, not a good environment, not be successful. Or I've seen leaders focus on systems and processes. I need a good system or a process. But again, if you don't create this environment where people can leverage the systems and the processes the way that you want them to, they will not be successful. So I challenge leaders to create this operating system which creates this consistency in how you operate. My teams always knew this is how we're going to operate within the system. Ellis follows the system, he believes in the system, and he leads through this system. And I think that's one way leaders can create the psychological safety is you really have to focus on the environment that you create, not only the physical environment, but how you give feedback, the type of feedback, when you give feedback. There has to be this agreement in terms of how you're giving feedback to people when you give feedback, for them to feel safe to accept that feedback, and then act on that feedback. And that's just one way I think about creating the psychological safety.
Okay.
For me, it's that one thing when, right, we get into these roles, you have to be ready. That psychological safety is built through that level of confidence, that level of achievement. One of the things, Mike, Ellis, and Aswama, and all of us used to get together and have dinner every month. And we would talk about these things that would appear to be unsafe, right? Unsafe. Why was it unsafe? Being one of the few, right? When I mean one of the few, that means Black leaders in the room. Let's just talk about that. Feeling the need to constantly prove your competence, right? Those are some of the pressures you get, and navigating what I would call what could be perceived to be stereotypes. You can't go in the room with that because, as my mother would say, it's not the glass ceiling that would hold you back. It's your sticky floor. So if you walk into those things in your head and you're sitting there, those are going to hold you back because you believe you're carrying this burden of representing an entire group. Well, you have to have that network that fills your tool bag, as Alex says, helps you build your operating system, that tells you when the baby's ugly, right? We don't want to talk about the ugly baby. We want to walk in the room and sugarcoat it. Oh, baby's so cute, it's so precious. But then when you sit back, you thinking to yourself, man, that's an ugly baby. Well, Ellis, remember when I wanted to start my company?
Yeah.
I meet Ellis at Starbucks. I'm like, hey, man, here's my idea. Right? He could have did like most people did, told me the baby was cute. You know what he told me? Man, I don't know what you're selling. I don't understand your business model. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't buy nothing from you. Well, the first 2 red lights home, I was mad at him. by the third red light, I was thinking about the blessings, right? It was psychologically safe for me to be vulnerable with him. Mm-hmm. But to show up, I've got to have that confidence to do something with what I hear, do something, create that trusting network. And so for me, it was that psychological safety. And I'm sure to come up about some decisions I had to make in my career, and nobody believed in me. Nobody. Mm. And Ellis will talk about it. When I said, hey, here's what I could do in 6 months, everybody in the room said no, except for Ellis. And so now he reversed it on me about a few years later when he wanted to shut a plant down. And I thought he was half crazy, but he said the same thing to me. Trust me, right? Yeah. Psychological safety. So that's the value of having the people around you like Aswama, Mike, because we had that type of that network to help us build that confidence.
I think I'll just add to that, and I know others want to jump in. The other thing that allows that to happen, and Billy brought up that one example of our conversation about his business, but the thing that allows that to happen is the conversations we had through the years. Mm-hmm. And I think about when you're running a team and you have this group of people, and you really have to be intentional about this. So how do you build the relationship with your team? If you only approach that team when something's wrong, or you only approach that person when something's wrong, then, it's hard to have it is hard to have the difficult discussions. So I think, the discussions that you have, the engagement that you have with your team, with other people, enables you to have the difficult conversations. It allows you to be comfortable having the difficult conversations because you've engaged, you know about each other's family, about, some of the personal things that they're going through, so you have that engagement, and then it creates, I think it enables people to say, okay, man, I've had that conversation with Ellis about a challenge I was dealing with outside of work. I don't mind bringing up a problem that we're having at work. So leaders must, and I talk about encounters, and all encounters matter. Mm-hmm. As a leader, every encounter you have with your team really matters. I don't care what type of encounter it is. It's just saying good morning. That encounter matters. Mm-hmm. And I think over time that creates this space where people feel safe around you if you really cherish those encounters.
So let me just add a couple of things because, sorry, Corey.
Because, I was just saying that's powerful.
Yeah, no, it is. Both Billy and Ellis have hit it spot on. And, Billy's not the only one that Ellis has had those tough conversations with. We've all been on the other side of those and felt like leaving, like shrinking and mad at the same time, but realizing that you just got some wisdom. You just got some things that, going to make you think differently about whatever it is that you're dealing with. But going back to the psychological safe space, I just want to add that, it starts with you. You have to have a confidence, and Billy talked about a confidence and a comfort level with who you are and how you operate. You have to realize what are you strong? What are your strengths? What are you really good at? What do you have to continually work on? And so be comfortable with that. This is who you are, your authentic self. Bring that with you everywhere you go. And I think to lead, people will respect that and appreciate that you show up the same way every time. They know what to expect from you. They know how you're going to respond and communicate. And then the other thing I will say is Ellis talks about, the operating system. I learned at Alcoa from I think a great leader. He would always ask me, he's like, what is your social system? How are you communicating? How are you sharing information? How often are you talking to your people one-on-one? What does that look like, right? And so thinking very intentionally about that helps you as a leader to make sure you are not just staying in your bubble, but you are assimilating and sharing and communicating on a regular basis, because that's how you're going to get things done. And that's the other thing that's very challenging. As you build your career and as you go up the ladder, what you've done to allow you to be successful has been by you. You've done it. You've built the blocks. You've been the architect of it. But now you have to delegate that and get things done through people. And so that's a very hard thing to let go of, because that's your expertise. That's your comfort zone. But you have to then get comfortable with leading through people, delegating, checking in, communicating. It's a whole different, skill set. And so, building that through the years, that's what made a difference for me, because I can't say that I stepped into corporate America with that. Didn't have all that. But being able to check in with folks like this, that helps you kind of validate where you are, what you need to be doing, and really fine tuning some of your tools. Iron sharpens iron, so to speak, right? So that's what we have here in this group.
Yeah. So Corey, you're hearing it, right, from somebody who came into the group and has had the opportunity to learn from some great brothers on this call. I think what's important as one becomes a leader within any organization is truly understanding who you are, as Mike said, but also being humble enough to know that you don't have all the answers, right? And being willing to go out and learn, being willing to challenge yourself, and ultimately looking at where you're trying to get to and how do you bring your team along the path to it. So it is multifaceted, and being able to just check yourself as you go along is critical.
Well, you have to, and Swami, one of the things you and I recently talked on the phone, right? When you're talking mental health, you're vulnerable, but knowing who you can tap into. Like he and I just had a conversation recently about other things, and envy's not in the group, right? What Mike Parnell eats doesn't make me go to the bathroom. So why am I worried about what he's doing? Right. So where I'm going with it is stay focused on what you own and what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
And everybody wins. Everybody eats. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at our group, and I think we'll come to this. We all had different plans. We all executed based on what we thought was important, but we had the opportunity to check in with each other and get challenged on our assumptions. That's really what we wanted, and that's what has helped us to achieve the success that we've had in different capacities. However you define success, that is.
So before building this system, including each of you, how did you all know that you needed someone? I mean, leadership can be isolating, and you don't necessarily know who you can trust or tap into. You don't have this system that you all have ultimately created over the years. You're in the beginning of your career. You are a leader. And as Billy mentioned earlier, maybe working against stereotypes that maybe only you are thinking about, but you feel the pressure of what we see out in society in terms of negative stereotypes about Black people and being in corporate America, maybe a diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI hire. How do you navigate to find the people, the tools that can be a part of your system and helping you to be a strong leader, and you don't know if you're safe yet?
Yeah, look, Corey, I think, and Mike said something earlier when he was going through it. One of the things that you would help me, and it does. It takes time to build this. Very few of us walk in day one, and we know here's what we need to do. Here's who we need to work with. We're fortunate enough to have people in an organization. I had an older brother in the organization that I could rely on, who had been through some things, but I had to really know who I was. And I stress with a lot of leaders, and Mike talked about this in terms of, your personal values very early on. And our values change as we go through life and as we go through our career. You value different things. But one of the things that I did, whether it was intentional, unintentional, I understood my value system very early on. And it was, through watching others and observing others. You have to get in there and you really have to watch the organization and learn the organization. And I watched and I learned. And again, I had other people. I had my brother there who could, kind of direct me in certain ways. But a lot of it was on me. But understanding my values and principles, very important. So then, as I start to understand my values and principles, who do I want around me? And do they have the same values and principles? It's not that I discarded just I'm not going to be around that person, but I started to build a network based on my values and principles, and then started to rely on that network, and through my career continue to build on that. There's one story I have, and I'll tell a quick story. And it was one of the early in my career, one of the biggest challenges I faced. And if I didn't have my values and principles that I believed in, I don't think I would have gotten through this. We talk about family. I value family. And I had a very senior leader, the second most senior leader in the company, kind of put me up against my brother. And he and my brother didn't get along. And this is how corporate can be sometimes. It can throw. And he decided, well, I'm going to give Ellis the big promotion. My brother was more qualified for this role, but I'm going to promote Ellis, and Ellis is going to be his brother's boss. I would have been the highest rank, I think, in terms of finance. I would have been one of the youngest vice presidents of finance in the company. And there were a lot of people saying, Ellis, you need to take this job. But I said, no, I value my family. And if I take this job, it puts my brother at risk. And I know what this person is doing. He wants to put my brother at risk. And so I had a set of values and principles that says, no, this isn't going to happen. My mother would have killed me for one thing. But this is not going to happen. So people said, well, Ellis, you cannot stand up to this leader. And I said, yes, I can. And I sat in front of that, again, second highest leader in the company. I sat in front of him, and we had a dialogue that it wasn't comfortable, but I made it very clear. This is not something I'm going to do. I'm not doing this. He knew I knew what he was doing. And at the end, my brother ended up getting the role because my brother. But if I didn't understand my values and I didn't stick to my values and principles and follow what other people told me, I could have taken the job, been a vice president. My brother said, Ellis, take the job. I'll support you. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so really understanding your values and principles, the sooner you do that, when you walk into that organization, you start to build this network around you that fits within your value system.
Yeah, and I would also add though that as somebody new and young coming into any organization, it is critical to look up to see who's ahead of you, and do they have, as Ellis said, the values that you perceive that are important as well. It may not align. Oftentimes, there may not be others in the company that look like you and have the same values potentially as you, but it doesn't mean that they're not individuals that you can emulate and who can help you along the way.
Yeah.
One of the things that a manager told me a long time ago was, as you move up the ladder, it's important to look backwards to see if you're pulling anybody along with you as well. And oftentimes, we tend to not focus so much on that. But when you see successful leaders, there are people who follow them because they have a value system and clearly can articulate where they're going and how they can help others along that journey as well. And I think for this group and for any individual joining an organization, it is critical to look out for those kind of things as well.
Now, and then you have to be open-minded, right? There were people from different backgrounds that were also part of our psychological safety. I had sponsors and I built those relationships. And it's something I tell my kids, listen, finding trustworthy people, start with asking your question. The question when people get around you, are they givers, takers, or matchers? Now, if they're just takers, common sense is going to kick in. You don't need to be around them. But if they're givers and matchers, the guys on the phone, I'm going to tell you just our mindset when we went to eat, guys, how do we pick up the bill? What do we do? You see everybody's laughing. What do we do?
Split it.
Put the card down.
You just threw your credit card in the middle of the table.
Right.
No matter who ordered what.
No sweat.
Or who drank what.
Yeah, and who drank
or
what.
Who drunk what.
You see Ellis is laughing, right? And it ain't a lot, but it's that high-end wine there, So, and Napa Valley hit the table. But we had a great time. The value wasn't in the bill. The value was in that mental health. That value was in that what you walked away with was priceless.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we're talking to you all who are perceived to be successful in your careers. And I think a lot of young people, I know when I was early in my career, this definition of success was what I may have seen on television, right? Or saw somebody in somebody else's life, growing up, go to school, have a family, start a career, have the house, the dog, the cat, whatever you have, and that being this definition of success. When you think about success, maybe earlier in your career versus what you see right now and consider to be success, when do you see that you may have redefined what success is? And how are you satisfying that definition for yourself now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. And I think back on, because I'm a very strong proponent of you define success for yourself. Don't let someone else define success for you, right? You need to define that for yourself. But to your point, though, you're going to define it differently as you progress throughout your career, and just your age, right? And your status in life. It's gonna modify a little bit. But for me, I will tell you, it was probably very simple definition of success when I first started out, growing up in the city of Akron, middle class. And I didn't mention this earlier, but my father worked for Goodyear. My grandfather worked for Goodyear, right?
Legacy.
So, legacy, okay. Yeah. Made it very difficult to leave when it was time to leave. But anyway, but I learned a lot from them in terms of their struggles and how corporate can treat you, sometimes not so good, and how you respond to it. But early on, my success definition was pretty simple, right? A good job, married at a young age, so a family that I could support. And early on, I told, I sometimes I regret that I said this because my wife will never let me forget it. Early on, I told her, we were just sitting, I don't think we were married yet. I said, I want to have a career and a job to support you and you don't have to work. And she looked at me, she said, well, I'm always going to work. I'm a career person. I was like, okay, well, that's my vision of success, was just to be able to support her and support the family. And so as you grow in your career and you get more responsibility and you get obviously more compensation, you start to broaden your definition of success and with the things that you want around you and where you want to, reside and all those things. But I never let it get beyond what I felt was comfortable for me, right? And what I mean by that is I could have probably had a bigger house if I wanted to, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to still do the things that were important to us, which were beyond just where we lived, right? Supporting others, helping family members, whatever it may be, right? Wanted to have the latitude and the flexibility to be able to do that. So success has always kind of progressed, but I would say, in my opinion, it progressed at a very measurable and non-egregious way, just a very systematic way. And I think that's what's been very comfortable for me. That's what kind of brought me back to my core in terms of my beliefs and my values, as Ellis talked about. I've always been able to maintain that because I never tried to go beyond those things that were important to me and keep it kind of simple. But obviously in my career, I've had success and I wanted to enjoy some of that, but not to be crazy with it, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Mike. For me, Corey, it was, and you're right, it changes when you first come into the company. You know, I hired in a company, and that was success. Getting through, getting through college. You know, I went to Hampton University, Hampton University. Getting through Hampton, getting the position. You know, my mother looked at my paycheck, was like, "You got to be kidding me, really?" And so that was a success. But as you get into your career, I always talk about being very intentional about things, and I talk about values and principles. And for me, another value of mine is autonomy. I, you know, I want autonomy. I want to be able to have control of that. I don't need to control everything, but I always tell people, because people say, I hear young people say, I want the autonomy. But with autonomy becomes responsibility and accountability. And I have never been afraid to be accountable for something. And I kind of cherish that. Say, look, this is my business. It's my organization. I want that autonomy to be able to run this business or run this organization. Now, I always told my leaders, if I do something really bad, you hold me accountable. I'm willing to live with that. So for me, as I started to go through my career, my values and principles became, the measure of success. And living those values and principles was a measure of success for me. So as I went through and had different positions, I never get, when I had one position where I didn't feel I had the autonomy, I said, man, I just don't feel good about this. And so being able to live those values and principles, that was successful for me. And then, we all, people say, well, money isn't, look, that comes with it. As you go through, you determine how much you need and what the right amount is. That's, is Mike and Bill, you determine what that is. Don't let somebody else determine what that is. Yeah. You determine what that is. But yeah, so as I started to go through my career, living those values and principles and being true to that, that was success for me. And that's how I measured, and being able to I've turned down a lot of jobs within Goodyear because they didn't fit my values and principles. And for me, turning down that promotion because it didn't fit, that was success for me. And that's how I started to measure it.
I just want to add to that because, I had two situations in my career where I refused to interview for a job because I was going to end up working for someone who was not in alignment with my values and my principles, so to speak. And he destroyed careers. And I seen it, I witnessed it. And so I said, I'm not interviewing for that job. And so in both cases, the vice president over this person called me and said, Mike, why aren't you interviewing for this job? And I told him, I was very, very, very candid with him, very frank with him. I'm not going to do that because I've seen what he's done to other people's careers. And they were like, don't worry about it. That it'll be fine. It's like, okay, sometimes you got to step out on faith, right? So I stepped out on faith. I trusted him. And in both cases, it worked out to my benefit. It worked out great. But, like Ellis is saying, sometimes that next job is not the right job. Right. Just because someone says, hey, we're going to pay you this much and this is the job. It just may not fit for you, given your situation, given your values, whatever it is. It may not be right for you. And you got to be willing to turn down those things and step away from those things because something better is on the horizon for you.
Yeah.
So Corey, one of the things that, the folks on this call, we've all been in corporate America for many years. And, sometimes we, as you're coming out of college or whatever it is, you're told that success is going to work for corporate America. I will tell you now that sometimes success is going a different track that best fits one's skill sets and is not always in the corporate American under the corporate American umbrella. As a business owner now, I truly believe that there are great opportunities for people to be successful in different entrepreneurial avenues that are not the traditional corporate path. And
Mhm.
along those paths, there is great opportunities to define what success may look like for those individuals. As for myself, as a business owner, I love the idea of success meaning that I'm home at 5:30 to have dinner with my kids, the ability to be able to take time off to go, play football with my son, go watch my daughter's volleyball game. That all comes around to defining what success means for each individual. And is there a chance to go back to corporate and make a lot more money? Potentially. But for me, as the rest of the group has talked about, that is not the success that I'm looking for. And so I think for anybody really, is defining upfront what you envision success for yourself being down the road, and then work defining a path to achieve that. If it's corporate America, fantastic, but there are other avenues to achieve the same thing.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Then for me, I want to just sum it up: happy, healthy, comfortable, and stable.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yes.
want. That's
Yes.
what I want. But let me make no bones about it. People get confused when they see me on social media and they see this thing. Their perception of what winning is and what Billy sees as winning is totally false. They don't see it in the morning right now when I wake up and I still shed tears around my challenges or shed tears about what's in front of me. Because there's no one that wakes up completely happy every day. If they are, let me meet them. Right. Let me talk to them, because I still have those challenges even today. So young people that are watching this show today, even today, Billy Ray Taylor still struggles with it. Billy Ray Taylor, you know what? The game keeps changing as I keep maturing. Coming out of college, I just wanted wealth. I was tired of eating spam, right? I was tired of I wanted steak, right? We didn't. Mom said, "Why would we go to McDonald's when we got something in the refrigerator?"
Right.
I remember those days, and so today I can go eat at those places, but that doesn't make me happy.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me happy. And so remember those 4 words: happy, healthy, comfortable,
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's a
Like
good
that.
word, Billy. And I really wanted to use this last moments of our time together to talk to the young people, right? Like I've listened to you all. It's just amazing to have that legacy at Goodyear, and maybe others have had, family members that went to college, but the people in the audience, like me, who were first gen everything. I say I'm a first generation everything, right? Not just going to college, but just everything. And may not know how to create a path for themselves or even know that it's possible. What can we say to them in terms of knowing that just because they reach for success, it doesn't mean that it has to be full of worry and stress and burden? As Biggie said, more money, more problems. How do we create this world that we want, and know that we have the control and authority over our lives to develop what success is for us, what it means to have a meaningful, fulfilled life, and that it is possible to have that. If you have the stress, what tools do you use to address that? If you have the worry and the anxiety over taking care of family members, many of us, have a tribe on our back, as I heard it described. How can we put the things in place like you all have with your team, knowing that we can do that early in our career and get stronger and stronger with it throughout our career, so that we are proactive and able to address things as they come, because issues are bound to come, whatever they may be.
Yeah. Look, I think every young person, when I coach young people, the first thing I ask them is, who's on your personal board of directors? So you've got to learn this concept of, and you have mentors, and I'm not talking about your best friend. I'm not saying he or she can't be on your personal board of directors, but can that person look at you I know all these three guys can look at me and say, Ellis, that's just not working, man. And so I try to get people to say, look, you need a personal board of directors to help you get through some of these challenges that can tell you you're wrong when you're wrong. You need that person. Sometimes your best friend won't do that. So I try to stress to people, one, really, your values and principles so critical in understanding that. Then, as soon as you can, put together a personal board of directors. And these are people that you can go to and you can ask them the tough question. You can present your side of it, and they'll look at you and say, I think you're wrong there. Or, hey, great approach. And so you must do that as soon as you can within your career. And then you start through that, you start defining what, as we said, you start defining what success is, and you start to define what it really means, to what's advancement mean for me, and how do I prepare myself for each level. But I really would really encourage all people listening, put together that personal board of directors that you can go to that can help you govern your career. And that's what it's about, governing your career.
And I
go ahead, Mike.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to add to what Ellis is saying. For me, what I would tell young people, in addition to your board, your confidants that are going to, give you the truth and give you, reality. In addition to that, I would say you need to develop a 3 to 5 year plan in terms of what you want to do, not just with the job and the career, but with your health, with your finances, with your spare time, how you want to continue to learn and what you want to continue to learn, because that's the thing. You have to be a continual learner, a lifelong learner. You got to be willing to continue to expand and build your horizon, of education beyond just that 4-year or 6-year degree, whatever it may be. But so I would say, in addition to what Ellis, articulated, is to put together a plan that encompasses your self, and just write it down. This is the things I want to accomplish. This is by the time I want to accomplish them. And I think that gives you at least something to keep going back to, and you can adjust it. It can be modified. It can, be flexible, but at least you have something that kind of grounds you back to what you want to do, what's important to you, and gives you a vision for your future. I think that is very important. And not to say that I did that back years ago. I've done that more recently. But if I would tell my younger self, that's what I would tell my younger self to do.
And I would say, just to add on to that, and Billy's going to say why you should do this, but share it with somebody.
Yes.
When you put that plan together,
100%.
It's a great point, Mike. Make sure you share it with somebody. Because Billy's going to, because it becomes a secret, and Billy's going to tell you why.
Right. Yep.
Let me jump in before Billy gets in. So as Ellis said, you got to have a plan. You have to be intentional. Mike's talked about that. You have to build your network. You also have to look at your health, right? Because none of this makes sense if you don't have your health.
Yes.
And ultimately, you put it all together. Hopefully you execute it. And then it's a matter of saying, okay, this will change over time, but be willing to do the hard work to get it done. Oftentimes people do the plans and all these wonderful things, but are not willing to do the hard work that's associated with it. So that's what I would add to the conversation around that. Billy.
Absolutely. It goes back, I often say you can't manage a secret. And whenever I walk in the room, I tell people you can't manage a secret. And let me break that down from mental health. If you bottle it up, it will eat you up. It's just that simple. And so one of the things I say, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond.
Yeah.
Right? These advices gentlemen giving you, some things we can't control what happened to us. We can't control our childhood circumstances. sometimes our economic conditions that we were born into. Well, we can't control it. What we can control, however, is how we respond to it. Mm-hmm. How we take these tools and processes that these three gentlemen are talking about and take the attitude is, this is what I'm going to do about it. Because where people get eaten up is they walk into this thing, the victim. Well, you got to go from victim to survivor to thriver. And that's done by how you look at it. You know, I stopped asking a long time ago. My mother would always say, the victim would say, why me? Why me? And you know what? You get stuck in that rut. The survivor asks, how do I get through this? Right? And but that one person, that thriver, it takes a different mentality, Corey. How do I use this to become stronger? How do I tap into Mike's experiences, Ellis's experiences, Aswama, to make me stronger to get through it? Because you know what? Every day we went to work, I assure you, there was the pressure to be perfect. There was the pressure to outperform everybody else. Yep. There was the pressure to represent. Before we even walked in the door to deliver anything called EBIT, right? Those were the deliverables we walked in the door with. What pressure? What pressure? Mike talked about it, Courtney. It goes back to what you said, that famous philosopher Biggie, right? We start chasing those jobs, more money, more problems.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we look at it, your value is not determined by how others see you. That's where mental health starts to drag us down. Yeah. Your power, the power that I have is to determine how I choose to respond. How I choose to respond. As my mother would say, son, when I was a little kid, someone called me a bad name. And she never winked. And I kept like, you gonna take my side? Or are you gonna? And she says, well, how did you respond? And I looked at him like, well, what do you mean? I just told you. She said, it's not what you're called, it's what you answer to. It's what you respond to. And so when you're talking your mental health, that gives you that control. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to call Mike and say, hey, Mike, Swama, you know, I'm trying to do this, man, with this real estate. If I sell it, he's laughing because this conversation just happened. Hey, man, I'm trying to sell this real estate. I still got property in Akron, but I don't want to pay that capital gains. Well, let me show you. I'm going to make a couple of calls. Hey, I just talked to my accountant. Hey, Ellis, I'm joining this board, man. How does it work? What do I do? What's the process? What do I say as I go in the room? You know what? I didn't know what the heck to say to go in the room for. And I was nervous, mental health. But I called him. Mike Parnell. You know, Mike they're big champions at the school he goes in. So Ellis and all of us went to the national championship with him, right? But he went into a role that was non-traditional and thrived at it. The question that I would have for Mike is, how did you do that? You're a minority. You didn't grow up in that environment, but yet you go into that role and thrive. How did you do that? That's the biggest question. How did you respond when you walked in the room? Right? How did you model it? Right? I just talked about how did you model it until you make it? Because Mike didn't fake it, right? Mike, you wasn't faking it. You were modeling until you made it, right? And so those are the things when you're talking mental health, Corey, that's how you shift it. That's how you shift it. Right? I'm going to use you. I remember back when you walked in the room, I didn't know you. Yeah. It was you were emceeing it. But when you walked in the room, you showed up. It wasn't about how old you were. It was like, I belong in this room. That's all I saw. You belong. And the question wasn't, wow, what is she doing? The first thing it was like, who is that? The first thing my wife and everybody, who is that? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and I was early in my career, one of the youngest directors in the mayoral cabinet, I think in the history of the mayor's cabinets. But yes, it takes a lot to, and it's so important to build systems with people that care about you and want to support you. And I think you're never too young to start developing some of these things that you all cited to in terms of building your personal board of directors. You can do that in high school as you are moving forward to go to college. You may not know that's what you're doing, but now Ellis has given us a phrase for it of what we can do starting early in our career. Yeah. So as we close out, gentlemen, I want you to think about this question and give a strong, lasting point of advice for our listeners in addressing their path to success and knowing that there's going to be challenges, but they can ultimately have the success that they want when they know how to create boundaries, know the people that they need to put in place. And here's the question. If success costs your mental health, is it really success?
No, it's not. Swama mentioned, Mike, I think we all mentioned it. And this is what it's about wellness. And I would say, as a young person, health and wellness it's on my values list. We think when we're young, we think we're invincible.
Yep.
We're young, we can get through this. But the sooner you put health and wellness on that values list, man, the better off you're going to be. And so you start making these decisions based on, again, I had autonomy, I had family, I had health and wellness were four of my top 6 values. And I started making decisions based on that. So again, Mike talked about not interviewing. Sometimes no is success versus yes.
Yeah.
I turned down, in my last, 8 years, I turned down 5 promotions. No was success. Yes was not going to be success. Some people looked at me like I was crazy. You turned down that? Yes, I turned down the number 1 plant in Goodyear Time Rubber. Because no was success. Yes was not going to be success for me. That was going to impact my health and wellness. So, I would say it's not. If it's going to have an unfavorable impact on your wellness, your well-being, that's not success because you can't enjoy it. You may not be around long enough to enjoy it.
A lot of us the question, I laughed when you thought about it. I thought about your question. We all walked away from the bag.
Yeah.
So why did we walk away from that security, that Goodyear legacy? You know what? Mental health. We knew it was time for a change. And that change was best suited for us. And it's not nothing bad about the company itself. It's where I was in that place in my life. And that decision was great for me. And you know what? I started a company from ground zero. I walked away from a salary, but my mental health, that was wealth.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, after, as I mentioned, 36 years in corporate America, when I walked away finally, I got a revelation again coming from my wife, because she said, ever since you retired or left corporate, you're a much nicer person. Like, whoa. But you just don't realize the price of that stress and what it's doing to you. Like I tell people, and we talked about it here, delivering every 30 days that EBITDA number, or that margin number or that sales number, that's pressure. And because the minute you as an African American don't do that, now they got a reason. Now they got, you in their crosshairs. So always delivering, always, being able to produce is a big part of your corporate life. And even if you're an entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, being able to deliver on a regular basis is a big part of your life and your expectations. So the minute you are free from that, maybe sometimes you don't realize the price that it's costing, what it's costing you in terms of your relationship with other people, your demeanor, your personality, et cetera, et cetera. So I never forget that. She tells people all the time, he's so nice now.
It goes back to being self-aware, because as you're going along, mental health is critical. You have to be aware that, hey, it is having an impact. And better yet, if you have a spouse who can maybe share some of this information with you, you have to make a decision as to, yes, the money is great, all the wonderful trimmings that come along with it. But if you don't have your physical and mental health, all the other stuff is just stuff on the side.
Yes, yes. Well, I really appreciate all of your responses. It really just helped to underscore what success is and how we have the opportunity to define that in our own lives. And to just let people know who are young, just starting out in their careers, understand that they don't have to succumb to the pressure of life and career to be eligible for success. It's like we have to work. Some people feel they have to work themselves literally to death to earn this level of success that we may see or want. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for sharing, for being vulnerable and transparent, for just letting us know how you have navigated through your careers and reached the level of success that you want in your life. And that could continue to evolve as you continue on with your life and how your families continue to grow. So this is June, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've had a powerful conversation with some great gentlemen. Thank you all for joining me this evening, and I look forward to continuing to follow you all and to see the great things you'll continue to do. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Corey. Great. Appreciate it.
Join us for Mental Wealth Wednesdays, a live platform dedicated to mental health, awareness, and support.
We can talk about mental health generally, and it's such a large umbrella that encompasses so much. But on this platform, we are focusing on severe mental illness and the treatment and the resources.
We meet every fourth Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by the one and only Corey Minor-Smith. Each session features powerful influencers, advocates, and change agents who are making a real impact in the mental health space. These conversations aren't just meaningful, they're transformational, they're informative, empowering, and life-changing. Join us for Mental Wealth Wednesdays, a live platform dedicated to mental health, awareness, and support.